Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the b-flo-show podcast. Today I have Ashes to Omens. It's a five-piece rock band from Athens, Georgia, forming in late July of 2017. They hit the ground running in the North Georgia area and quickly started playing numerous shows in the region. Their influences range from Soundgarden, Shinedown, Tool, and more. They have a new guitarist, Mr. Brett, here that's joining us. So please welcome him. Warm welcome, everybody. This is Ashes to Omens. Ashes to Omens. How we doing, guys?
Good. What's up, Brandon?
Good, good. Just first, I just kind of want to go around the room, introduce yourselves, and kind of what you do, what you play, what you do with the band.
Sweet. I'm James. I'm the frontman, lyricist, vocalist.
I'm Chris. Started and pretty much it.
I'm Brett Gabriel. I'm the new guitarist, fresh off the press. I'm happy to be with these guys. So,
very nice. I'm sure they're excited to have you as well. James, just if you'll tell me a little bit about the band, how you guys came to be, just kind of brief history or a full history. We got all night, so.
Sure. I think all of us have been in previous bands before, and I was in a couple of previous bands, took a step away from music for a little while, and found that I wanted to, start a band, as most bands go, and started off. I found a couple of guitarists, and then one thing led to another. It led us to a drummer and our current bassist, Chris. And we kind of just hit the ground running from there. We, cut a couple of tracks, cut a single and a video, and kind of ran from there. Went through a few changes over the past couple of years. Now we're working on our second album. So we really started off playing in Athens a lot, and really weren't trying to limit ourselves from where we would play. So, our first year we were playing all over Georgia, and then we started branching out from there, doing, a lot of the southern states, and it's kind of been that way up until about March of this year. So
very nice. I am familiar. You had a few previous bands. I know they didn't kind of work out, or somebody went their separate ways, that kind of thing. Sure. And you formed this band 17. It is good. I don't know if we even crossed paths back in those days. I know maybe here and there. But it's been a wild few years, so
yeah.
But Ashes to Omens is the new band, Forgetting the Past. So as far as Ashes to Omens, great name for a band. Nice. Super awesome name. How did you guys get that name, and where did that kind of come from?
Chris, you want to take that one?
Basically, we took. Kind of going back to what James said about, us all being in previous bands, it's like the ashes of the previous on this moment have now. Just what I drop, that's what I get from it.
I gotcha. You were kind of breaking out right there. Yeah, you're cutting out. I can edit, so I do edit. So if you guys want to fix that, we can go back over that question.
Yeah, if you want to. James's video cut out on me.
All right, we're good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, let's try again. So Ashes to Omens is a great name for a band. So you guys have... Sorry, hang on. So Ashes to Omens is a great name for a band. How did you guys kind of come up with that, and where did that come from?
Well, we were tossing around when we first got together. We were tossing around a few names, and to me, the band name, I think David was editor, maybe it was James. I can't remember. It's been a while. Basically,
Still cutting out, Chris.
Still cutting out, brother.
Yeah. James, it's cool. It's cool. James, you think you can fill that?
Sure. Yeah, I think I got like every sixth word. I could probably fill that. So So the name we I think we all collectively came up with the name, but I think the actual name, I think Chris is spot on with that. I think it was between me and David. We had initially tossed out some ideas for some band names that didn't really sit well with us, and we started tossing around ideas of we were all in bands previously. So we wanted to find a way to, honor our past, but also kind of acknowledge what we were trying to do together as a band for the future. And so we took, we're collectively like 5 people that were in the ashes of other bands. And, we're creating this new idea, this, omen for the future. Ideally, I think, to our fans, I think it means different things. But that was where the name come from. That was where the founding of the band came from is, these leftover members of these old bands coming together to create something new.
That's great. I think you even shared this meme, and it really struck me the other day. It was talking about, it's like, hey, we just released a 5-song EP. Let's split up, gang. And
yeah, that's courtesy of Scott Sutton.
yeah. That meme is really one of my ideologies of local bands is, you have this strong, like, yeah, we're going to do a band, we're going to do a thing. And then, something happens. Maybe somebody gets married, and nothing against marriage, obviously, but somebody gets married and, maybe the wife doesn't like them being in the band, or this happens and that happens. So, there's a lot of things that kind of go down. That was my personal experience, by the way. So it is good that you guys are still taking your passions, and still working with it and doing something with it in that regard. So the EPs don't split up after your next EP. But yeah, Ashes to Omens, great name. I really like the idea that's behind that too. I was gonna ask, and this is just kind of general topic stuff, but we have a music industry obviously now that's went from analog to digital. So you have, I'm an old guy, so I saw the CDs and all that kind of stuff. So now you have Spotify and Spot the Fly, as I call it. But you have all these things that are kind of a digital format with the music industry. As far as that goes, I'd just like to hear kind of your guys' opinion on the music industry as a whole, and kind of what you're doing to influence, or not influence, but what you're doing to kind of navigate the music industry right now.
Sure.
Before we start, can you hear me a little bit better? So can you hear me a little bit better now?
I can hear you, Chris.
All right, it's this phone. I forgot it does this with video chat, so I went to my car. Okay. So
great things and conversations take place.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'll let you go ahead, James.
So I think I would love for all 3 of us to kind of answer that, because I think all 3 of us is going to bring 3 different perspectives that's going to converge. Chris, do you want to start that off since you got a better connection now?
No, I didn't. I was trying to adjust the phone and everything, so I didn't really exactly hear the question. I was waiting on your answer.
Oh, fair enough.
I'll
Brett,
answer.
what about you, man?
So when it comes to the music business, being an artist, what I've noticed that's changed from a generational perspective is, like, if you look at our parents and before, especially like our parents' generation, they were active music listeners, which means on a Friday or Saturday night, they would go to a bar and like try to check out a new band, try to find a new band. I don't feel like people really do that anymore. Like the general listener, a non-musician doesn't really do that. And also with the downloading thing and with Spotify and things like that, people started just trying to find, one song at a time. People don't go out so much anymore and buy albums like they used to. Now it's all about, the single. And that's bad from an artistic standpoint, because used to you wanted to push album as like a novel versus like a short story. And so I think the dynamic has really changed a lot about how you have to promote yourself, how you, I guess the amount of times you you release a song in shorter periods instead of trying to do like a big album every 2 years or something. So I just think that that's changed a lot about how a band markets themselves. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about how I feel too. So I mean, going by what Brett said, basically thinking about, like my dad's generation and everything, going to this, I remember going to Best Buy with him, and he would pick up a CD and he would play it, he'd play 5, 6, 7, 8 songs or the whole album. He'd know all of them because that's basically how it was back then. They didn't have streaming platforms. They didn't have music at the tip of your fingers. So I think that a lot of the focus is on the singles and what the band is pushing, or the production company or the record company or whatever is pushing. That's what people are going to hear. They're not really going to hear the entire story of the album, because every song on our first album, I'm sure this is same across the board for every artist, but every song on our first album tells a story. And some people may hear 1 or 2 of the stories. They don't hear every story because you don't go out and buy CDs anymore. You just whatever's being advertised, whatever's being pushed, that's what you'll listen to, and then they won't pay it no more attention after that. They won't give the band another listen with any of their other songs. So a lot of the landscape has changed in that, and I think that I think Brett really hit the nail on the head on that one. That's pretty much how I feel how the industry has changed in recent years with streaming platforms, YouTube, and all these other things, social media. It's almost like you're pushing one thing and you're just pushing part of a thing, not the whole thing. So it makes it more difficult for artists. But for the diehard fans, it makes it even sweeter for them because they are enjoying the entire story, and so many other people may be missing out on what the entire story is.
Perfect.
Yeah, and then my side of that, yep, they definitely, I think we all agree here. We live in a world full of immediate gratification. There's not a lot of, the only real anticipation you get nowadays is really from, movies and movie trailers. We live in a single to single world. Ideally, I think when every band gets together, they want to put together that album because the album is the end game. But, from a marketing perspective, the single and getting to that single, a 6-week PR plan or marketing plan or 8-week PR plan. And then when that's done, when it's out, you've reached that mountain, and then you start over again. And I think what kind of has set us apart from other bands is something that, a previous member and I used to talk about a lot, was climbing our next mountain. And when we would finish something, we would say, what's our next mountain to climb? And how do we get there? How do we get from point A to point B? And I think I think ultimately that's the market that we live in the sense that you're going to see bands that are going to stick around, that are ready to climb that next mountain, and not necessarily, well, how do I get to that mountain? No, how do you climb the next mountain? How do you get higher? How do you elevate yourself so that you're, standing out from all these other people and all these other bands and everything that everyone else is doing, and show them how you're different in a way that comes off as original and in a way that it comes off as something that those people can relate to. So it's not easy, because if you're not finding your next mountain, then what are you doing, right?
Do you guys think that that's the reason that the rock genre is a little less popular these days, is because it is kind of meant to be a long form art? You have the albums like you guys were talking about that came out that were telling a progressive story, and I'm a big fan of progressive rock. So concept albums, things like that is a given in that genre. Why is it? That's one reason I think, but why is it that there's not as many rock fans now? And if there are a lot of rock fans, they're usually kind of older and kind of already tapped into it.
That's funny that you mentioned that. I was talking a little bit about concept albums yesterday with Brett, but from our perspective, at least from my perspective with Ashes to Omens, I haven't seen a decline in the rock fans. I've seen an increase in the number of people that was coming to our shows. I think it's more along the lines of what you're passionate about. Are you looking for something that can really touch your soul, and really connect with you emotionally? Are you looking for something that you can carry home with you? Or are you looking for an immediate gratification? If I hear an amazing rock song on the radio, yeah, I want to know more about the band. I want to know more about, why that song got written, why I connected to it. And I think that's the difference between maybe rock and some of the other mainstream art forms like hip hop or pop is people don't do that. People just connect with it because it's a catchy riff or a catchy hook, or a catchy bunch of repeated words over and over and over. I don't see the passion in that music. I don't see the love for that music like I do rock. So I think at the end of the day, I think to answer your question, maybe that's why people see a decline in rock is because people care less about getting that emotional attachment and more about getting, the emotional satisfaction.
One thing I'll say about that is I feel like, and this is a very, very, I guess you would say general statement. It obviously doesn't apply to every rock band. But when a band writes a rock album, they're trying to write something that is going to some succeed and some fail, obviously, but that's kind of been a push in the rock genre in the last 50 years, or whatever, is to create something long lasting, where many other types of music focus on, let's just see what we can do and get the top 40, and then in a year we'll be forgot about, because you think about, could you name everything that was on the top 40 10 years ago? No, probably not. I know I couldn't. But that stuff was really popular then. It's forgotten about, but that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about the instant gratification. So I think sometimes rock bands would rather be remembered and not get as much attention today, but it to withstand the test of time, whereas other genres aren't necessarily looking for that same, doesn't have that same goal. So,
you think there's been an evolution of music that's kind of, I don't want to say peaked, but there's an evolution of music that it's just kind of, I guess it's kind of like in the 70s, people thought the 60s music was better. And it goes all the way up to now where I think 90s music is the best, but my parents thought that 70s music was the best, or 60s. So do you think that there is an evolution that's going to happen in rock and roll, or it has happened, or maybe has it peaked?
I think
rock has stayed the same this whole time.
I think that you can go to a metal festival or a hard rock festival, and you see that there's still a lot of fans out there. They're still going to shows and stuff. They're just kind of settled into their ways, and I guess maybe the powers that be aren't marketing to them as they do the other genres.
I like that real dark.
I gotcha. So, as far as advertising and things like that, the mainstream rock, I don't want to say rock has always been underground, but there has been an underground element to it. The mainstream being top 40 songs, pop, songs that repeat words over and over again. I really like that. And that is something, I guess, that's catching a lot of people's attention. And, they're going into that kind of like McDonald's, maybe catching people early, and then later on, that's their tastes. I eat a lot of McDonald's, so. But yeah, man, awesome. So here's a very serious question. How critical do you think bass players are?
Oh, our bass player or bass players in general?
Bass players in general.
Chris, you want to take that one?
Well, I mean, it depends. I think they're actually more critical than people think they are. A lot of people, and it's usually, not to put anybody on blast, but it's usually a person who plays guitar that can't make a band work. thinks the bass player is basically the mini fridge in the back of the studio or the back of the jam room, that their part isn't important. But, you know, it depends on what the bass player brings to the table. I mean, you know, I've noticed since I started playing with this band that James really likes the bass guitar. That's probably, I would even go as far as saying that's probably his favorite instrument in the band, or at least one of them. So I think that I think bass players are usually underrated, and there's a lot of good bass players out there. You know, there's Les Claypool, there's Robbie Merrill from Godsmack is often overlooked as a great bass player. And if you ever sit and watch his, he does a bass, a solo bass thing where he's insane. Nikki Sixx, one of my favorite ones. So I think bass players are overlooked, and I don't think a band really works well without one. I'm sure it can work, but you don't really hear about it often. And most people that think bass players aren't an important part of the band are not, in my opinion, they're not true musicians to me, because they think that that's a replaceable ingredient. And I can tell you right now that the band would sound a whole lot different if James had said, okay, we just don't need a bass player. We just want 2 guitars and drums and vocals, and that's all we want. I guarantee this band would not sound nowhere near the same.
Right.
Can I add
So that's my opinion.
Can I add a response to that? So Metallica and Justice for All, that album has hardly any bass on it. And it's just like the brunt of the joke in so many guitar forums about how there's not enough bass on that album and how Jason Newsted got gypped. And I want to say that somebody mixed on YouTube, they made a Injustice for Jason where they added the bass back in. And if Metallica would just re-release whatever that guy did to add the bass in, they'd make another $10 million because it's so much better. And the reason, actually, Metallica, they say that they were like screwing with Jason because he was new in the band at the time. But part of it, to get real geeky, was that was about the time that Metallica fully switched from Marshall amps to Mesa Boogie, and just the sonic capabilities of the Mesas were a lot different than the Marshalls. And I think that that was kind of the sound that they were going for, and the byproduct was they lost a lot of bass. So part of that was a technical thing, which is bad in the long run, but that was one reason it happened. So bass is very important. That is the point of my story. So.
And Cliff Burton was awesome. So Cliff Burton, yes. they were kind of getting away from, him and mourning his death. So I did see a thing with the producer. He kind of showed what he did with the album too. I think that's out there as well on YouTube. But it's like the producer actually kind of goes through and is like, look, I didn't take it out. Like he's trying to kind of defend that too. I did see that. So, but yeah, there's brilliant bass players out there. That's one of those kind of band humor things that I throw out there. But there's brilliant bass players. One of my favorites is Flea, master of the slap bass. Les Claypool you mentioned, and John My Young. So I'm a huge Dream Theater fan.
Nice.
He's really good.
So he's amazing on bass. You guys have played several shows, of course. You've been playing North Georgia, surrounding states. What's your favorite show that you've played so far, and kind of walk me through that?
Oh, man. I'm going to have to actually think on this one for a second. Chris, do you got anything off the top of your head?
Well, I'll go on and say that I won't put a specific show to it, but probably my favorite venue has always been Tavern 53 in Houston, Georgia. But there's too many to count. I mean, we played Innovation Amphitheater with Tom Kiefer. That was a really interesting show. That was a good show. Unfortunately, there was some bass malfunctions. Apparently, the venue didn't think the bass guitarist was important, so I didn't have bass the first 4 songs in the set. But I mean, I can't really narrow it down to one show. I mean, we played the 40 watt twice. The first time we played the 40 watt was insane.
Yeah.
Shout out to 40 watt.
We sold it. Yeah. I forgot how many tickets we sold, but we packed that place out, and it was a big deal to us, and it was really cool being back there and seeing, the green room back there, all the signatures on the wall, the hole in the wall where I think it was Kurt Cobain's signature got stolen off of it. It's just I mean, I can't really narrow it down to one show.
Yeah.
I've we've had our good shows and we've had our bad shows. And I enjoyed every one of them, even the bad ones. I enjoyed the bad ones, even if we fuss about it afterwards.
I think
but
I gotta agree with Chris. I mean, there's a few shows that stick out to me. We opened for Rehab and hung out with those guys. That was an amazing show. We opened for, Tom Kiefer at the amphitheater. That was an amazing show. We played this one show in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, that was right on the strip at a college, the college town there. And that show, when we first got there, we were like, what have we got ourselves into? And it ended up being an amazing show. The place was absolutely packed. We played for 3 hours. It was absolutely nuts. And we were playing on the floor.
Frat boys love rock music.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but they loved it.
Yeah, frat boys love rock. We headlined, Rocktoberfest up in middle of nowhere, South Carolina, I think it was. We played the stage out there. That was amazing. There was like 30 bands on that bill that day. I guess every show, I actually can remember maybe only one or two shows and I'm like, God, that was horrible. I want to forget that show. Most of them have been great. Like every show we played, I think we played over 100 shows in the past 2 years. And I can't think of one that I don't have a single memory from. Like I literally can remember like every show we played and like what was so awesome about each show. So it would be hard to say this one is better than this one because each one of them has so many awesome memories. So, but that 40 Watt show, that was a damn good show. Like we have footage of like all the crowd so far back, like chanting and like pumping their fists in the air, and it was surreal. So
the promo video for the release for Conflict is clips from that show.
Yeah.
Is that on YouTube?
Yeah,
it's on
our
YouTube.
channel.
There you go. All right. Yeah, YouTube. 40 Watt is an amazing venue. I've been to several shows there. It's just, it's phenomenal. It gives you that intimate setting. You can see some really great musicians really close up, and it's one of my favorite here in Athens for sure. Cool. So as far as your music writing process, you guys have several songs out. Obviously, you have a full album. You're working on your second. Am I right with that? Yeah. So you're working on your second. Who, as far as your creative process, who is really writing most of the riffs, that kind of thing, lyrics, and kind of what's the process there? Do you guys all write together? Do you write separately?
I think it's all of the above. With most of the first album, the lyrics were really me and Dave, and at that time Casey was playing with us, and we would just sit down and start writing. And then we'd get together with the guys and we'd say, hey, this is what we worked on this week. This is the thoughts that we have, about that. This next album that we're working on, that process has been a little bit different. We've collaborated more collectively on this album. And I think the quality of the music, it shows that immensely. So, yeah, I'm always writing. So I can always get in a mood to write lyrics and have an idea for a song. And then, when I present that, I have ideas for what I'd like instruments to play. Like Chris pointed out earlier, I'm a big fan of bass. So I always write with the bass and drums in mind. And normally, David is really good about coming up with riffs that they fit good, with what we write. So with, Brett coming in, we're going to, try to, do those same things, those same various styles and bring it all together. And he's a phenomenal guitarist anyway. And so he's constantly writing riffs on his own. So I feel like it's always been some sort of collective effort in some way. We share, if I don't just write all the lyrics, David always has an idea for a lyric. He's always got something written down somewhere that, hey, do you think you could use this? Or check out this riff that I wrote, and this might be a cool thing to say, during this part of the song. So I think it's all of us, I don't think we've wrote any new music since Steven has started playing with us. And so it's been it's been a growth over the past 6 months. Yeah, I would say, adding Brett, adding Steven. And now with, COVID pretty much shutting everything down, it gives us more of an opportunity to write, to grow as musicians. So.
Yeah. I agree that you pretty much said everything that I would have said if I had answered the question. A few times in some songs, I've noticed Let the Devil Loose was one of them. If you remember this, James, we were writing that song and we were just having, I can't remember which part of the song we were having trouble writing, but I finally had, we just weren't meshing that day. We weren't getting it the way we wanted it. And I finally said, look, all right, here's what we're going to do. This is where I kind of called myself the patcher-upper. I said, I want you to do this, I want you to do this, and I want you to do this. Let's see how that sounds. So, I mean, that was my contribution to writing that song. And, I'll throw in, David's really good with knowing what key to play in, how to play it and everything. I may stray off in some songs I'll stray off the beaten path, and I'll try to work in a little more bass that isn't following the rhythm to kind of spice it up a little bit. One song that I think we're probably not going to release, it's a real bass driven song, and I sat with David and we wrote it, and it's got a really cool bass line to it, but for most part, James is right. A lot of times it'll start with if it doesn't start with lyrics, it'll start with or a tune in James's head. It'll start with a simple riff from David, and like War Cry is a great example of a song with evolution in it, because that song was so empty when we first started writing it and we were working on it. I mean, it was just so empty. And David came over to my house one day and we sat down and we talked about what we needed to do. Like I said, we need to do this, we need to add this, we need to add this, and eventually it turned out to, like, what it eventually evolved into was, it is phenomenal. I think it's really gonna hit hard with a bunch of people. So the evolution of a song is, all the songs that we've written, is just amazing if you think about it. So
Yeah.
Well, cool. Looks like Brett had to take a bathroom break. So that's cool. Move on to the next question here. It's really about your single that's coming up on October 2nd. You guys are really excited about War Cry coming out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great reviews. I was kind of going over your website, kind of seeing what you guys have been up to. What I kind of stumbled upon is the meaning behind the song. It's a lot of issues with dealing with depression, anxiety, that kind of thing. As far as this, is that something you guys have struggled with yourselves, and kind of what did you do to cope? Was it music? Did it help you kind of snap out of that kind of thing, or?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think at least, I know myself and James, I ain't trying to put you on blast or anything, but myself and James, we probably struggle with anxiety and depression more than anybody else in the band. I'm not saying, they don't have their own problems and everything, but or at least me and James show it a lot more. But yeah, the song tackles those issues, and I'll go into a little story here. We are when we release a song, it's going to be dedicated to the memory of one of my best friends that he passed away back in August. I know, Brandon, you're on my Facebook. I'm sure you saw me posting all about it back at the beginning of August.
Yes, sir.
We're dedicating that to the memory of him. And I messaged his wife and sent her the lyrics before we did it, and she said that was basically his like, that described him to a T, how he fought and never gave up throughout life, and he always stood up and fought his battles as best he could. So to me, the song, that reflects a lot in me too, because it's about, I have always been a person that I tackle my problems head on. I've been around, I'm not going to say anything bad about anybody, but I've been around people who use mind-altering substances to cope with their problems in the past. I've always chose not to. I've always turned to music. That song right there kind of sums up my fight, my struggles, my anxiety, and my depression too, as much as it does James. Even though the lyrics came from James's head, that they can describe my situations to a T and how I handle things. So I think a lot of people are going to relate to this, because I know a lot of people, especially nowadays with mental health being the way it is, a lot of people are going to be able to relate to this song. It's really hitting hard with the military, and soldiers struggling with PTSD and depression, from being in the war. So I think it's going to hit hard with a lot of people, and they're going to be able to relate to it very much.
Yeah, one of the things that I've definitely have really liked about the next generation, our generation, is we're really becoming aware of mental health issues, and we're really talking about them. Back when in my mom's generation, and my mom struggles, she has like a schizophrenia, so she has like a problem, mental problem. And she has for years, and has struggled with it. So, you kind of get in this stigma, or at least you used to. It was a lot worse back in the day, but you used to get kind of put in this box where it was like something really bad, or something that, is needed to be isolated or something like that. But it's getting more common that we're all kind of banding together and talking about these things. And I was super upset to hear about your friend, and we had shared a lot of moments together. So it's tough when that happens. I've had several pass away from car accidents and things like that. So I've had to really pull myself out of some gutters, man. So, and hats off to you for not using mind-altering substances, because I have before. But hats off, seriously, for that. But James, you had something to say on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've dealt with depression and anxiety my entire life. I grew up in a household that was nothing but, anxiety, depression. My mom as well. Before she passed away, for the past like 35 years, it was all, take a pill for, this, that, or the other. And up until recent, you're right. It wasn't, people knew about it, but I don't think people realized how prevalent that issue is. And I feel like that's what makes this song so important. And I think that's why we've been pushing it as hard as we have in regards to mental health issues, is because right now, there's a whole hell of a lot of people in this world that now that is definitely at the forefront of their life. They don't have an outlet like they had before. A lot of times depression, anxiety, those people that are living with it, they can at least go to work to forget about it for a little while. But, with everything that's going on with COVID, hell, half the world couldn't work for a long time. We only recently got back to work. A lot of us still haven't gotten back to work. So there's people that is exacerbated those issues. It's made it harder to cope with. It's made it harder to deal with. And, I know that it's been addressed, before this year, but it's everything that's going on right now has made a lot of that a lot worse. So, putting that out on Front Street and making sure that people understand that they're not alone, that there are people that do deal with that. There are musicians that write solely because of that, because that's their outlet, in hopes that it can relate to people, in hopes that it can help them overcome those issues. I think that's what's important. It's important for people to understand that, and that there's always going to be somebody, whether they want to or not, there's always going to be somebody around them that they can turn to, when that time comes, or if they need somebody.
Absolutely. And a lot of our heroes, as far as rock and roll, they had some mental health things going on that maybe if they were, talking, or maybe something else kind of went down, maybe they'd still be around. Right. Jimi Hendrix, he had bipolar. Kurt Cobain, obviously, took his own life. So, well, not obviously, there's conspiracies, but other than that, there are, a lot of things in that area. So it is, it's good to talk about, have somebody to talk to, and all that kind of thing with this awesome and positive message with War Cry. And everybody make sure you pre-save that. I think it's on Spotify. You guys got a pre-save?
Yep, and iTunes.
And iTunes. Very cool. Besides the new single, do you guys have anything else coming out to look forward to? I know we're kind of limited as far as lockdown, but are you guys doing any live streams or anything like that?
We did one live stream about a month and a half ago of one of our songs. It got a really positive response because we hadn't did that. We were questioning whether or not we should do that. We're probably going to do more of that because we want to get our music out there. We want our music to be heard. And right now, people want to hear us. You know, we get messages all the time. You know, why don't you guys do a live stream? Why don't you guys do a Twitch stream or something? You know, just do one or two songs. So I definitely think, you know, in the next upcoming weeks, that's going to be something that we can do. So it's something definitely our fans can look forward to.
Very nice. Brett, you're the new guy. You've been quiet, man. So I'm going to give you this. I'm going to let you field this question first. It's a little less heavy than what we've been doing. So it's kind of one of those stereotypical, I can't even say it, stereotypical questions. If you were stranded on a desert island and you had one album to listen to for the rest of your life, or two you got rescued in the distant future, what would it be and why?
One album, not 5,
One
not
album.
10. Okay, so probably Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy, and Infinite Sadness. I got 2 albums out of that.
All right, no deluxe box sets. All right.
Well, okay, I almost said, so that was the album that got me listening to rock music. So before that, I was so young that I just listened to like what my parents listened to, you know, because I was a kid. So, but when that album came out, it was kind of like the coming of age thing. It was just basically it just came out at just the right time.
It's a great album.
And so that album is what I remember seeing 1979 on MTV. And what's funny is we didn't have MTV at my house at the time. Like we just had like 5 channels. But I went to my grandma's house every summer and I saw it and like my jaw just hit the floor. And so
that's the one they're riding in the car and it's
they're riding in the car.
Yeah.
So,
really
and that album's got a lot of like, you know, real heavy, real soft, like mixed in, like, you know, a lot of emotion in that album. And I almost said AC/DC Back in Black because that's the album that made me start wanting to play guitar. But I will choose Smashing Pumpkins. AC/DC, notable mention.
Chris, what about you?
No competition. Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood.
Interesting choice.
I love Motley Crue. And that was their best album in my opinion. That was also the album the first one they recorded, if memory serves me correctly, was the first one they recorded when they were sober. And it turned out to be their best album. So
imagine that.
Big fan of the movie The Dirt, and big fan of that band. You can ask James. Love Nikki Sixx on the bass, and that album just gives me a lot of energy. So I'd probably get tired of Vince Neil's voice after about the 50th or 60th time listening to it. But hey, what can you do? You're stuck with the album. One album, you may as well make it one that you know you'll at least jam 50 or 60 times before you get tired of it.
Is that the one with Kickstart My Heart on it?
Yes.
I got that on there? Yeah, that's definitely, every time I hear that and I'm driving, I break the speed limit for sure.
We used to play that song.
It's a great song.
We used to play that song at shows.
Really? Nice, man.
Yeah.
It's a great song.
We did.
James, what about you, man?
So I've got a tie, man. Maybe even a 3-way tie. So I'm a huge fan of Chris Cornell. So I would say the original Audioslave album.
Going for the vocalist albums.
Yeah, got to go to that. Or Shinedown, Us Versus Them, or Us and Them, rather. That was a fantastic album. I'm a huge Brent Smith fan. And then the other album, some deep cuts from like the 80s and 90s, is Bon Jovi These Days. Nice. I'm a huge Bon Jovi fan, and you can't beat the Greatest Hits album, right?
Yeah.
So probably those 3. I think leaning more towards the Cornell, but yeah,
But if you
definitely.
had to choose one.
I guess I'm going with the Audio Slave album.
Nice. So, an Audio Slave album or Chris Cornell solo?
Now, I'm a huge fan of Audio Slave. Hell,
Cool.
I mean, as far as that's concerned, I'm a huge Cornell fan, though. But I'm a big fan of Audio Slave just in general. So, definitely that first album was hot.
Right
Hey,
on.
Brandon.
Yeah.
Brandon, can I give you some trivia about Smashing Pumpkins again?
Sure, do it. Yeah.
Okay, so their video Tonight was based on a old movie called A Trip to the Moon. And it was actually their third choice. The other two choices, one had just been made by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and then the other one was somebody else. So it was actually their third choice, and I believe that's probably one of the best music videos from the 90s. But the two stars in Tonight were actually two of the voices from SpongeBob. So SpongeBob and Smashing Pumpkins
Wow.
connected.
Like 3 degrees of separation or whatever.
3 degrees of separation. I always thought that was so funny.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, that video was trippy. It was very trippy. But yeah, I remember, and your story is so funny because it was the same with me. Like I literally saw that at my grandma's house. Like, and that's what it was tripping me out because, you know, it was like, dude, this guy's got the same story as me because I like literally watched 1979 and that I remember that music video at my grandma's on MTV when MTV was MTV. You know, when it was cool, and you had all the videos on there. But yeah, amazing just artistry, and they did something in the 90s. There was a lot of grunge, and which kind of grungy, but there was a lot of things that were kind of on the hilt of that. They were doing a little bit different, their own different things. So.
For sure.
Yeah, man, that was a great band for sure. My album, if anybody wants to know,
We do.
I'm gonna ask you.
It would probably be Scenes from a Memory from Dream Theater is probably what I would go. If I had a tie, it would be Images and Words. So between those two albums for them. Just concept albums, very good. You know, I don't think I would get tired of them. So
Sure.
Fair.
yeah. Well, guys, again, I appreciate it. Do you have anything to say for your fans out there that might be listening or anything? Definitely, everybody check out War Cry October 2nd. They miss you. Make sure you guys go on. Of course, you guys have loads of social media, so make sure you guys are liking their pages, twittering their twits, and Snapchatting their snaps, and all that kind of thing. But guys, I appreciate it. Love you to pieces for being here, and you know, holler at me again. I'd love to have you back on sometime. You know, after maybe COVID's done, we got some more shows to promote.
Yeah,
Definitely.
sounds great.
Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, War Cry October 2nd. A little bit of news too. We just started working with World Star PR out of New York this past week.
Congrats!
So
Awesome.
shout out to Jimmy Starr and Eileen Shapiro up there. They've done great. We got in the New York Weekly Times today,
Very
and
nice.
we were TRV Countdown video of the day yesterday, or the 18th rather. And so big steps, and you know, we're really happy with the growth that we've had, and we look forward to, you know, continued growth and seeing our fans again.
Pretty soon, you guys will be on MTV. I just know it.
That's the goal.
Hopefully MTV will be back to MTV by then.
Back to
though.
music.
Guys, one more thing. Do you guys
Yeah,
remember
exactly.
MTV was like MTV, then it went to like MTV2 was MTV, and then there was like MTV Rock or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
I appreciate it, guys, and you guys have a good night, and holler at me soon, okay?
All right,
Thanks,
Brandon.
Brandon.
Thanks,
All
Brandon.
right, later.
See ya.
Later.